All right, everyone. I think let's just get started. Thank you again for coming. It's good seeing some new and familiar faces here. So, for you who haven't got pizza, please feel free to get some more here. But other than that, for today, we are really going to cover two topics in general, right, on a high level. First one is we're going to talk about what the consulting career track means. And the second part being how we as the consulting club here can contribute to you pursuing that consulting career track. So I think for the first part, I would like to clear the misconception of consulting as a function versus consulting as a career track, right? So I think a lot of people, especially us in the healthcare industry, we are often under the impression that we have to undergo all this process. We basically have to be established in order for us to be a consultant. But this is actually not the case when we are talking about a consulting career track. And in fact, everybody, recent graduate, and even undergraduate, they can come in as consultant. And I'm going to elaborate on how our skill set can actually match up and help us prepare for the consulting career track, right? So, this said, consulting really simply can be defined as solving problem at a really high level in this case. And by high level here, I mean you're going to work with managers, CEOs, VPs, people at a high level that determine the direction of the company. And in this case, to illustrate furthermore on how a consulting engagement happen, usually a client, a business, come by, they reach out to a consulting firm, they try to figure out, they have a problem they need to solve, they cannot solve it themselves, and they need the help of the consulting firm to solve this solve this problem. And then the consulting firms will set up a team between 4 to 6 people, depending on the workload, and they're going to send out and they will work on this project. They will collect data, perform analysis, and work on this project for weeks up to a couple of months. And then after that, they will propose a recommendation to the client, the business. And afterwards, they will be set apart. They are going to go and work on another project while the current business that they are working on in the first place, they are going to decide on whether they want to adhere or take over the recommendation that the consulting firm proposed in the first place. So, examples of problems that consulting firms typically do, they have to do with strategies. So, right here I have an example of Apple trying to go into video games industries. And if I further elaborate on this, strategy problems are everywhere. So you can, in technology, for example, you have a smartphone, like the example that I mentioned earlier, smartphone business going into video games. And in pharmaceuticals, there are a lot of startups company. They have a new drugs, for example, and they try to market a particular drugs. And often consultants are being invited to set up all this strategy to commercialize these drugs, right? And then in healthcare, for example, a hospital having an issue financially, the volume of the patients have been decreasing over time. They're trying to figure out, how do we, turn this thing around. Those are some of the things that consultants typically do, and so on and so on. And with the recent trend, for example, Amazon recently acquiring Whole Foods, right? They're going from a digital sales to a brick and mortar. There's also another strategy problem. And recently in healthcare, pharmaceuticals, Celgene acquired Juno Therapeutics, right? Going to the CAR T-cell spaces. So these are all this kind of stuff that consultants do, right? And so really broadly, there are two types of consulting. First, generalist. The second one is boutique consulting. So as the name suggests, generalists deal with all kinds of consulting. So people like me who have background in healthcare, for example, I can use my background to go into the energy industry, for example, industrial goods, airlines, and so on. And another one is boutique consulting. And in this case, it would be boutique life science consulting firm. And they are specialized into a specific industry. And to further elaborate on this, here are some of the examples on the generalist firms and the life science boutique firms. These are pretty well-known firms like McKinsey, BCG, and Bain, MBB, the top 3 firms in the generalist area. And life science boutique firms, they specialize in healthcare. A lot of them are actually located either in the West Coast or East Coast. And so there are advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons with these two types of consulting firms. With generalist firms, it is high-profile work. Your clients will most likely be the leaders of the industry. For example, in the energy, a lot of these companies will work with ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, stuff like that. And in the healthcare industry, you will probably work with Novartis, Pfizer, Roche, and so on. Whereas in the life science boutique firms, they are focusing mainly in a specific space, like I mentioned earlier. And although it is not rare, they also have giant clients like Roche and stuff, and so on. And with respect to generalist firms, you have diverse experiences. So I mentioned earlier that you are going to be exposed to different kind of industry. Your skill set in life science can be used to solve energy problems, for example. And specialization, exit opportunities. I'm going to touch on exit opportunities later on. However, there are some cons with respect to this. With generalist firms, because they are multinational, so they are huge firms, they are everywhere. You can find them in Asia, Europe, and so on. They require quite a bit of travel. And there's issue of the cons of work-life balance. So it's actually getting better, but just to point out, the typical workload of consultant actually around 65 hours on average, and they can be even higher than that depending on the clients. And that's the life science boutique firms. The cons is that they have to compete with the generalist firms and the field office locations. Well, the pros with this is that they only have limited number of offices, so the number of travels are also limited compared to the generalist firms. Right? So one thing that comes to my mind, so earlier I mentioned about how strategy consulting is about solving business at the highest level. One of the things portion that may come up to your mind is that seems that strategy is a really important thing. So why don't companies have their own internal team to solve the problems for themselves, right? So really, here are the reasons why they often reach out externally to, for example, McKinsey, these big firms in order to solve their problems. So for one, some of them actually do not have the portfolio to solve their own problems, and some of them they reach out to a third party in order for them to give them a third party opinion that is unbiased, so limiting an inherent bias, right? And offer a fresh set of eyes of new perspective. This is often true when you have a merger and acquisition, where you want a third party in the middle that can negotiate on behalf of the firms. Of course, businesses are not always having problems, right? So some companies may have problems once a year, sometimes maybe even less than that. And so having a full-time in-house consulting is really expensive, and you can actually go into the compensation later on a typical consultant and see why it can be really expensive really fast, right? And oftentimes senior executives are busy running their own companies, so they don't have time to look into the problems at the firms. They don't have time to set up the strategy of the firm for the firms moving forward. Okay. So next questions that may come up to your mind is that, well, it looks like this is really high-level business problems, right? So we are PhD and MDs, we don't have any training in business. And so why don't they hire MBAs? Why don't they hire people with a lot of business skills and so on, right? So apparently, PhD and MDs, we actually have the necessary skill set in order for us to contribute to the consulting firms. First of all, for PhD, we have the intellectual curiosity, we are tenacious, we are hypothesis-driven. I'm going to elaborate a little bit on this later on. And we have the specific knowledge, and especially in the boutique consulting firm, this is really important skill because they will prefer recruiting people with, for example, with a specific background in cancer, for example, to work on a cancer project compared to hiring an MBA, right, in this case. And for MDs, they are known as, they are known to have people skills, they are natural team players, they have clinical perspective, and they have the regulatory barrier knowledge and the overall landscape, healthcare landscape knowledge on this one, right? So overall, both PhD and MD, they have the problem-solving skill. Most of us are comfortable with numbers, and we have the analytic workforce in order for us to propel us forward, right? And so PhD and MDs are typically hired to solve strategy problems. And earlier I mentioned about hypothesis-driven, right? So the hypothesis-driven that we are actually using in the academia here is actually really useful because those are the approach they use in consulting space also. All the MBAs are using this similar approach in order for them to solve the problems. That is, they first generate a hypothesis, they collect the data, test the hypothesis, and analyze the results. They draw conclusions, and then prepare presentations for the clients. Or in this case, in this case, we are probably preparing this for the audience for conferences, for example, right? So, but with respect to that, there are differences also, right? There are high margins of error which are tolerated in the business world. So margin error of 20% is nothing for them. They make a lot of money in this case. And they require an answer within a rapid and defined time frame. You know? So I was in your position earlier on, I was a PhD. And when we come up with a hypothesis, we run gazillion of experiments, right? And it can take years. And as long as the funding is there, there's not a lot of problem in PI. But for the business world, it's actually not the case. So the consulting engagement is really short, from weeks to months, as I mentioned earlier. So you have to really be fast. You have to come up with a solution by the end time frame, right? So those are the major differences. So these are some of the questions that is often asked by people. Do I need business experience? So you don't need it at all. The reason being, actually most of the firms, they provide the necessary training in order for you to get up there on par with people at the MBA level. Like McKinsey, they have the mini MBA program just before you start. If you get accepted by them, just before you start your full-time, they're going to provide this mini MBA program that basically expose you to all these business terms and business skills necessary to solve the problems. BCG has the Business Essentials program, Deloitte has the Deloitte University, and so on. Right? So you can learn this on the job via a hands-on approach. And you're also typically assigned to a mentor that will directly monitor your progress as you go. And they will be giving a lot of feedback as you go. Right? So for us, PhD and MD, here are the career trajectory for the typical consulting firm. So the naming convention may change, but typically PhD and MD enter at the same place, which is the consultant. Right? So back then, it used to be that MBA schools comprise about almost 100% of them, but nowadays they are seeing more and more of MD and PhD. In fact, the recent statistics show that 40% of the recent hire actually candidates from PhD and MDs. So far, just to summarize a little bit on the benefits of consulting career track, is that the consulting actually provides impactful solutions to the big picture. So within weeks, right? Unlike the typical academia in which you are actually working on running experiments for years, or even take decades. But the idea is that you will be impactful within such a short amount of time, within weeks, within months. Right? And then generalist consulting provides exposure to a range of industry. If you are someone like me who get bored really easily with experiment and want to try different stuff, then generalist consulting firm is something that you definitely want to try in, right? Yeah. So we have had a lot of our alumni going from doing regular healthcare work, going into energy, going to retail, some even going into non-profit, education and so on. So there are different kind of areas that you can just take the opportunity to move your step forward, try it out. If you don't like it, no problem. And next time, you can try different areas and so on. Right? And you are working in a meritocratic team environment. I'm going to talk more about this later on, but basically the system in the consulting firm is up. Most of them is up or out. So the tenure is around 2 to 3 years. So after 2 or 3 years, you will be compared, of course, to your peers. Either you are going to move up in the firm, or you are going to be out. But it's not a huge problem because there's a lot of exit opportunities. I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit. And so you also get the opportunity to interact with senior level executives. So we have a well-defined career progression, nice compensation, and nice exit opportunities. Right. So this is just compensation and career progression here. So as you enter as consultant, the range is between 120 to 180K. Right? And the big three firm, MBB, from what I understand, last year, their base salary is 150,000. And this doesn't include bonus and 401k, all the other benefits. It will come up to close to 200,000 easily. Right? And even the specialist boutique life consulting firm, most of them are above 6-digit salary for base salary, without even considering the bonuses and so on. And within 1 or 2 years, you move up from manager. And I mentioned earlier that there's the up or out culture. So either you make it as manager, or you're out moving into another career trajectory. So in this case, you have a lot of options. So you will work with clients, right? You will work with a lot of clients during your 2 years there. And if the clients like you, a lot of them actually show that they may end up joining their former client. They may join the business strategy, in a Fortune 500 company. We have alumni that finished working in BCG that now working in Thermo Fisher as one of the strategy manager over there, right? And you can potentially start your own business, non-profit consulting, and so on and so on, right? You can even return to academia if you prefer academia. Right? And so consulting firm actually will help you find your niche. Right? It will help you figure out if this is this specific area, healthcare is really something that you want to specialize in, or maybe you just love, maybe you're adventurous, you might just love trying different kind of stuff. So it's a couple of consulting alumni. So Google CEO Sundar Pichai is actually ex-McKinsey. And we have Sarah Sandberg, is also ex-McKinsey. John Legend, the songwriter, is actually based is from BCG. And Mitt Romney from Bain. There's a lot of alumni that they came out from consulting, now becoming top leaders in the world right now. So the next question you might have is, well, it seems consulting looks really promising. I would like to know how can I become one. Well, apparently we have a really specific procedure in order for us to apply and become ready to get prepared for the consulting career track. And so requirements for the 2018 applicants. So you must be graduating next year. So typically they start inviting and interviewing you 1 year before the start of your full time, right? So if you are going to apply this year, you're going to start next year, and so on, right? And you have to have, basically they are looking for people who have a well-rounded ability. Number one, of course, your academic standing has to be pretty good, and also they want to see your soft skill. In this case, they can see you participating in extracurricular activities. You are a leader in a certain field. You have a non-profit, for example, or maybe you are interested in business. You are taking business classes and so on. Those can help you secure an interview with them, right? And in order to land an interview invitation, there are a lot of steps associated with it. Most people can get by just fine submitting their application online, but a lot of them actually network with the current consultant. So these firms, they have a lot of information session. Oftentimes they will invite you to come to their offices to talk to their consultants, partners, principals, and so on. And so over there, you have to make a good impressions. Try to make them remember your name. Maybe next time you can put their names, name drop on the CV, for example, and hopefully you get the application in and get invited for the interview. And just to give a little bit of statistics, getting the interview is the most difficult part of all the interview process, right? So after you get the interview, there's the first round interview, second round, third round interview. We'll go more in depth into that later on in the future workshop. But getting the interview is the most difficult part. Ideally, you want to start networking really soon, right? And you have to submit an application with your GPA, standardized test score, and then you have the consulting style resume. I need to point this out here because this is really different from the traditional academic style resume. And you'll see on our future workshop, along with the cover letter. And some firms in BCG is the only one. BCG actually have the essay questions that you have to fill in. Right, so here are a little bit of breakdown on the recruitment timeline. So in February and April, you would like to start ideally building consulting resume and cover letter, conduct informational interviews with consultants, reach out to through LinkedIn, or even better, if they have an info session, attend an info session, exchange address, and start talking with them, and so on. And April, there's something called the summer workshop, right? So summer workshop, so they are inviting you to an event 1 to 3 days, in which you are going to get a hands-on experience on how a consulting engagement is being done. And the nice thing about this is most of them actually, if you are invited into this, most of them actually end up being you invited for a first round interview for the full time. So you have to take advantage of this opportunity. And then continue networking. And in May and July, start practicing case interview actually. You actually have to practice from May until the October. So 10 summer workshop, sometimes in June and July. You'll further refine your resume and cover letter if not selected, and so on and so on. But essentially, one of the components that I would like to point out right now is that there are two aspects, which is case interview and then fit interview. I'm going to elaborate more on that later, but it is different from the traditional interview. Okay? And then in September, October, the first round interview begins. Ask for feedback if not invited, and so on. In November, job offers are given out, and then, as I mentioned earlier, you will be starting the coming year. So you'll be attending the mini MBA program I mentioned earlier, typically a couple of months before you started. Right. And here are the typical consulting interview process. So we are based in Houston, so there are a couple of rounds. The first and second rounds are typically held in the Houston office. But if you are applying, for example, internationally or to Boston or to San Francisco, the final round are typically at the office in which you decide where you want to work. Right? So the decision round is at the target office. Right? Okay, so summer workshop, I touched a little bit on this earlier, but essentially you're going to have hands-on experience in the life of a consultant. It's fully paid event, everything's been paid. You're going to be flown out to the destinations for 1 to 3 day event. It's offered by these 4 firms. You have to submit a resume. Of course, you have to pass a fit interview. I think it's the 30 minutes interview over the phone. Yeah. Right. And accepted, grant this invitation to the first round in the fall. Interview structure. So I touched a little bit on this earlier, but we have fit interview and case interview. So fit interview is basically they'll be touching on a lot of your soft skill, which is leadership, teamwork, conflict resolution, and so on. For example, tell me about time when you're working in a challenging environment and how you get out of that challenging environment, right? Or maybe tell me a time when you are having a conflict in a teamwork-based environment and tell me how you solve that problem, and so on. And then, do you pass the effort test? So a lot of consultants actually use this test. So in the case that they're trying to imagine that if you are stuck with them at the airport for a couple of hours, are they likely to be fine staying with you, talking with you for the next few hours? Mm-hmm. And if you are being a jerk, of course, it's not going to let you in. And fit interview is as important, and if not as, it's more important, if not as important as the case interview, right? And the second part, the case interview, and we will touch a lot on this, but this is basically, they give you a business problem. For example, this company, they have an issue with the profitability. Profit has been going down by 20% in the last 2 years. So how are you going to turn this around, right? And then you have to structure it. There's a really specific way to structure the problems and solve the problems. Or maybe another problem in the healthcare industry. Look, this company, it looks like there's a small company. They want to go into a new business. They want to develop a new product line, but they don't know what they should do. Either they should build manufacture the new product online by themselves, so build in-house, or they can just merge with another company, acquire another company, and let the other company manufacture the drugs or products for them, or they can come into like a partnership with a firm to manufacture the drugs. There are so many things that they can go with respect to case interviews. And just to give a little bit of one number on this one, typically you want to have 30 to 40 case interviews, the more the better. Case interviews before you even go, have the full-time interviews, right? And each case interview, the one that you practice with friends or partners, lasts about an hour or so, right? So it's easily 1 hour times 40 is like 40 hours. It's really time-consuming. So you want to make sure that you are fully prepared going into the full-time interview, actual interview, right? So they will try to look into how you structure and solve the problems, how you generate hypotheses and really methodically solve the problems. They are going to assess your math, course, and there's no calculator allowed. Math, analytical, and communication skills. And at the end, we'll have a short 5 to 10 minutes Q&A session. Right? So I think that kind of covers up the first part. So the first part, I think we kind of covered the first part, which is talking about a little bit about consulting, about the background in consulting. So before I go into the second part, which is on the consulting club and how we can help you prepare for the next step if you're interested in consulting, do you have any questions? No. Yes?
I'm curious, say if someone want to be software and do a postdoc, can they still do consulting after that?
Postdoc?
Yeah.
Yeah, postdoc also.
Okay.
Yeah. So postdoc will follow the same procedure as the PhD and MD. Okay, I think this lady first. Yeah.
How many lawyers do you think belong to this field? I'm just thinking of
Lawyer, huh? We kind of cater our program to PhD and MD, but we do have one lawyer, friend of ours, who actually practiced for this one. I'm not sure where he is right now. Yeah, but even lawyers, they have a specific deadline also for lawyers, I think, for JD, right? Yeah.
Hi, I have 2 questions, but so for the timeline that you gave, is that typical of all the consulting firms that you listed, or do they differ from time, like from firm to firm?
They are actually typically within the same ballpark. So like the MDB, they recruit, the application deadline I think is all of them are in July. Maybe some of them is early, some of them is late July, but usually within the same month. I want to point out that there are some firms that will be recruiting in the spring, although most of them are recruiting in the fall, some of them do recruit in the spring. And for example, BCG do recruit in the spring, and Clearview, a boutique life science consulting firm, they also recruit in the spring. But they are pretty much close in the same ballpark. And I think,
so you spoke a little bit about like the actual consulting, like a consulting position. What about like if you want to like get your feet wet and you want to do like a summer internship? Because I mean, I'm pretty sure McKinsey offers it. I'm not sure if the other two would offer it, but I think they would. So like, could you talk a little bit about like PhDs and MDs within like a summer internship position?
Yeah.
And like the timeline, I guess.
Yeah. As far as I know, PhD and MD do not have summer internship. I mean, it's offered, but it's not offered by PhD and MD.
Yeah.
Right? The reason being, it is such a short program, and PhD and MD typically need to have some kind of like a business exposure early on in the beginning. And if they invited to the internship, then they will probably have to take a certain amount of time to get you used to the business, business jargon and so on. So typically for a 6 weeks to 8 weeks internship, they are not offered to PhD and MD.
I have a question about you talking about usually the new hire in the consulting firm have 2 to 3 years of tenure, and then it's kind of up or out. Is it the same for the generalist and also the boutique consulting firm?
Let me see here. For the generalist, for sure it is up and out. For the life science, I've heard different comments on this one. I've heard some of them that use up and out, but at least for the boutique one, I know they are more likely compared to the generalists to actually retain you because you already specialize.
Yeah.
Yeah. More questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So are consultants always office-based? You mentioned that the boutique firms have fewer offices. Does that mean they have people who are kind of field-based? Or is that...
With the boutique firms, they have few offices. For example, Clearview, I know they have like 2 or 3 offices. One in Boston and one in SF. I think they're opening another one somewhere, I don't remember. But so because they have few offices, a lot of the engagement are done at the offices. And compared to the generalist firm, from what I've heard, they actually travel less compared to the generalist firm. Yeah, that answers the question. Yes.
What percentage of applicants get an interview, and what percentage of interviewees get a job?
Okay, this,
approximately.
I think the statistics. I think we provide statistics for the future workshop. But just on top of my head, from you submitting your resume up to you getting offer, 2%. So out of 100 candidates, 2 people is getting the offer. But of course, we are talking about general population. But with the right training, you can further boost this one, and I can show you some number on that one later on. Yeah. So it's a highly competitive field. Sure. Okay.
I just want to make sure I understand. So not much of this is done at home, from home office? You're saying most times you go in?
Most of them you are going to travel, right? So back then, it used to be that you have to travel Monday to Friday. And you might have different kind of projects at the time. But nowadays, I think a lot of people complain, and they are getting better and better at trying to accommodate new consultants. So for example, MBB nowadays, we only allow to travel from Monday to Thursday. So Friday you will be at the home office where you are, right? And Saturday and Sunday is untouched. So we're going to ask to work on Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. And also, they have really nice maternity other programs. And I know that we have consultants at McKinsey that allow you to can kind of modify the amount of hours that you work, but your salary will also be modified accordingly. But I think this is something that maybe people high up, once you can have some kind of a rapport with the company, once you have the kind of rapport, maybe. Yes.
So what's the average time of a project? If you work on a project, you said weeks to months, so what's kind of the middle ground?
I don't know if I can qualify to answer this, but I don't remember the numbers on top of my head, but typically it's not more than 3 months, typically, and can be the shortest one that I've heard of is like 3 weeks. Yeah, so I would say a month and a half would be like the average. Yes.
So I wonder, like, by your experience, like the people they hire from Houston, are they more often also be assigned to the Houston office, or they can be assigned to other office worldwide or in other places?
So if you, for example, you get a full-time offer into the Houston office, rest assured that you're going to be traveling a lot, right?
Right, yeah.
So you can be going to Atlanta, for example, or going to Dallas for the engagement. I don't know about international, but they do have international program. For example, you are sick of the US and you want to travel to Europe, then they have like this exchange program that allows you to work there for like a year or two. And if you want, you can stay over there also. Yeah. Yes?
How do teams get selected?
This is really complicated, but good question. So from what I've heard, when you first started, the consultant will have the options to choose what kind of project they want, what kind of people, or if you know somebody that they want to work with, and what kind of industry they want. So there are several criteria, and the consultant will be allowed to choose the priority based on this criteria, right? So for example, you have someone that you really want to work with, this person is really good in healthcare, and you want to work in healthcare, then you can assign him as the first person. There's no guarantee that you will get it, but there's a better chance for you to get it. Right? So when you start, you probably don't have a lot of say in respect to the kind of project that you want. But after you get to the manager level, then you start to have this develop specialization. You know which area you want to work in, and that's where you kind of have this more say on how you want. Questions? Yes.
You mentioned the 65-hour work week. Is that steady, or is that more
That's
like
average.
usually you have 50 hours here and then you have 80 hours when it's you're about near a deadline of a project?
So 65 is average. I've never heard of people working 50 hours. So I think 55 is kind of pushing it already. I would say it's closer to 65, 70, 80, I think. 65 is, yeah, so I think more toward the upper bound.
So you'd get towards 80 when your project deadline was approaching.
65, 80, yeah. Yes.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Yes.
So you're just out of school, you got married, you're about to start a family. You would not recommend this job to someone who's in this position, right?
From what I've heard, okay, I know they have a really generous maternity leave.
But that's if you establish a good rapport
Yes.
with the partners or
Yes.
whoever's an upper
No, but the
management?
maternity leave part,
Yes.
the one is available for everybody.
Okay,
Yeah, the one is available for everybody.
but with the traveling in mind, it becomes a bit of an issue, right?
It can be, but it's something that you can need to negotiate with the firm themselves.
Okay.
But from what I've heard, they are really good at coming up, negotiating and coming up with a compromise.
Okay.
Yeah. One of our board directors is actually on a maternity leave, and I think he's on a leave for what, 2 or 3 months.
Oh, paternity
Even
leave?
more
Yeah.
than that.
Nice. Cool.
Just returned to work. Yeah.
Okay.
Question? I think I have a question here earlier. Any more? Okay. Right. Right then, let's go to the second part, right? So, consulting club at the Texas Medical Center. So, the mission of the consulting club is really twofold. The first one is being to expose you guys to the consulting career track, which is what we are doing right now. And of course, number 2, to train you guys and get you guys ready, right, for the full time. And I established in 2015. We started up as the consulting club at Baylor, but then we expanded to the whole TMC institutions, and now we are actually a non-profit with the total of 500 plus members. Right? So each year we have about 100 plus members joining us. And we are just a list of people from different institutions. And our members are made primarily from these 4 institutions here. Right? So let's go through a little bit on some of the work that we have done in the past. So earlier I mentioned about the summer programs. So in 2017 we have 22 members selected for this and into this fall. And considering that this program is actually really competitive, so for every 2,000 applicants there's only 100 spots. We're actually doing a pretty good job with respect to the summer program. And we have a total of 48 full-time interview invitations from this big firm. So we have from BCG, McKinsey, KPMG, and so on. So a mix of this firm and also the boutique consulting. So here's our track record. We're definitely getting the job interviews up there. We are definitely getting more presence. So nowadays, a lot of these big firms, they specifically recruit at the Texas Medical Center, right? And of course, we are trying to boost the full-time employment. And just going a little bit to this data, 2016, we have 31 job interviews, and out of those, we have 15 unique candidates that get the job interviews. In 2017, we have about 26, I think. And so, I think earlier there's a question on statistics on how many people get job offer, right? So, with 48 invitation, we have about 9 here, so about 1/5, 20%. So in this case, we are actually boosting the rate from 2% to approximately 5% here. Sorry, 20% here. So just a little bit, I'm going to introduce our executive team here. I think most of them are sitting up front. So I'm the president from last year. I will be serving until February. Actually, I have a question, yeah.
I mean, I can do it after.
Okay. And then we have Lin Hai, he's senior vice president. He will be taking up the president spot in March. Lin Hai will please stand up. So just to memorize the face. And then we have 4 divisions. We have the finance and digital ops, in charge of all the financials and digital operation, everything you see on the websites. It's from Estan and Archie. And we have the educations. So starting in the next few educational events, the workshop, you'll see them a lot. They will be giving the talk up here. And we have the external relation. They are the one in charge of mainly working out with really contacting consulting firms, holding info session, and also they're in charge of the KISS competition. I'm going to talk more about the KISS competition later on. And then we have the consulting agency. So if you are not sure if consulting is the right career track for you, these guys, they are actually working with clients in and out of Houston, and it's basically a hands-on consulting projects. And by joining, if you want, you can register with them. You can talk more a bit about it later on, but you can register with them and you can get a hands-on experience on consulting and can decide whether consulting is the right career track for you or not. Right? So let's talk a little bit about the kind of events that we have here. So we have educational workshops. So I'm going to get into this later on, but essentially we have the resume and cover letter, consulting style. We have the case interview and so on. And we have the talks from current and former consultant. So just So next week, not next week, I think early February, we are going to invite some of our successful candidates to give their views on the programs that we have and how the program actually helped them get a full-time offer. And then we also have information session held by consulting firms. So save the date, it's February 22nd, we will have one of the premier boutique consulting firm, Clearview, flying out from Boston to give a talk on this one. If you're interested in life science specifically, I highly recommend. I will be sending more reminders as we go on. And we have other events, weekly case interview practice session. We also have networking mixers and case competition. Okay. And as for the case competition, this is basically a weekend, one-day event. So we mix up PhD MDs with MBAs from UT, UH, and Rice. I think we have like 6 to 8 teams that we are going to ask them to solve a business problem. And we are going to also to have actual judges from the big firm, McKinsey, BCG, being the 10 to serve as judges. Last year we have 6 of them. And last year, happens that our problem is actually, the case prompt that we have is actually on Amazon, right? And on Amazon, and wow, I just want to share a little bit about this one. What's interesting is that one of the candidates, one of the team from the for the Amazon case, they actually point out that Amazon should go brick and mortar. So before we find out that they actually acquire Whole Foods, how many of you actually think that Amazon should actually go from digital to brick and mortar here? Yeah. Okay, not a lot of you, right? So these are actually a good time for you to get the hands-on experience on these kind of things, the business judgment, on the kind of laying out strategy for firms to move forward and so on. And of course, we have prizes for this, and originally organized with local entities first. Yeah. And consulting agency. So earlier I mentioned about this, that this is a hands-on experience opportunity. If you are not sure if consulting is right for you, you can register here with register here with Linhai. So Linhai will, you can register and have your name put into a list that we have. So whenever we have a clients reaching out to us and offering a project, we are going to reach out to you, and we are going to match your availability, expertise, and interest to the kind of projects that we have. Okay? So the kind of project that we have, we're going to go more on details later on, but it's typically a team of 5 to 6. We work 5 to 10 hours per week. Okay. All right, so let's give an example a little bit about the kind of project that we have. So this is actually our first project. We have an IT strategy project. It's really surprising to us because a lot of us are mainly working in healthcare, and suddenly a firm working in IT is referred to us. And we figure we should just wing it. And apparently we are doing a really good job with respect to this project. So apparently this is a small, mid-sized firm. They offer IT services to small to medium companies with employees between 25 to 100. And traditionally, they have been relying on referrals to get this company to purchase their projects. So they came to us, they say, is there anything that we should be doing, right? So we come in, we actually look into the competitive analysis, looking into the competitors and what the competitors have done. We look into how they have delivered the message to the clients and so on. And at the end of the day, we give a recommendation that allows them to achieve $1 million increase in revenue. Right? It's kind of awesome. And then second project that we have is in life science. So we have a partner that have been working with us since January of last year. It's called Kindly Consulting. So they are based in Santa Monica, California. And we have worked in multiple projects with them. This project with them is a $5 billion company, mRNA therapeutics company based in Boston. They try to develop, they have a list of portfolio products, 40 plus. They want to know, out of those 40, which one should they go into. And then we have a product sales strategy for diagnostic firms. We have market analysis for feeding tubes. And most recently, still ongoing, we have the go-to-market strategy for precision machine manufacturer. So this company is based in Japan, and they are working mostly in the automotive industry. And they're trying to go into the healthcare industry, so figure that out. So we come in, we try to figure out how and which area of segmentation of industry this should go in. Right? And so, to point this out again, so if you really want to get a case of this, register to our listserv within Hi here, right? And then, okay, I think it's basic membership. So, almost finished, but basic membership. So we have two kinds of membership here. The first one, basically, this is provided free for all. So with this free membership, we are able to attend all the information sessions held by consulting firms. You can attend talks by consultant and guest speakers. You can also talk with former consultant on these opportunities. You can also get access to Spectator One weekly case interview practice. We also have another type of membership which is called training membership, which add to the basic membership that we have. So with this training membership, you can attend networking workshop and the future workshop. We have about 8-10 of these. You can attend this free, and you also have access to all our resources, a lot of casebook that you need to prepare for the consulting interview. You can access all the videos, all the PowerPoint slides that we have here. We are recording everything, as you can see here. And you will also be eligible for case competition and access to the consulting agency projects. And all of this get for, we charge, training membership is $30 per year, so it's not a huge amount, $30. And for each training membership, each workshop, we are providing food and drink, so so none of this actually go into our own pocket. All of this is mainly to provide better services, better offering to you guys. So if you're not sure yet about registering for training membership, you can attend one of these events as a basic member for $10 for each event. Right? So if you're envisioning that you're going to attend at least 3 of these, I highly recommend that you register for this training membership. And you can register this with Archie. Where's Archie? Oh, there you go. Archie and Asan here, the finance and digital ops officers. Okay. Right, so this is how your contribution will be used. We are going to use it to invite consultants and firms on campus, additional case materials, drinks, foods, etc., refreshment, also to fund the case competition and so on. Right. So you can register online, or the officers are here to help you if you decide that you want to register right away. The last one, yeah, there you go. Last one, save the date. So these are some of the events that are going to happen in the near future. So there's a McKinsey Sparks Symposium. This is for women advanced professional review candidate who want to learn more about the consulting career track. So the registration deadline is January 28th. If you're interested, go ahead and register for it. And we have the McKinsey Info session. So there's going to be an APCS event, Annual Presidential Career Symposium at 1MC on February 15th. So McKinsey will be holding an info session over there. I think it's 10:45 to 11:45. So make sure you register if you want to know more about McKinsey. And then the clinical healthcare partners, so we have an info session, like I mentioned, they will be flying from Boston here on February 22nd. So if you are interested to learn more about boutique consulting firm, there we go. And for those of you who are starting here in the US but planning to go international or returning to your home country, then go ahead and register for this. So these are for position outside of US, right? And case competition April 14th. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Yes.
So I have a question about those students or postdocs and MDs who are not in the Houston area but are tied to institutions within the TMC, in satellite campuses and so forth. If they want to be a member, would they have access to these amazing resources via ITV or being able to access the website and pulling up the videos and participating, online,
Yes.
through online distance learning?
Yes, if you are our training members, then you have access. This video we posted on our website only for our training members.
Okay.
Right? And we have several of our members actually from MDs and Smithfield.
Okay.
So some of them actually, yeah.
And just to follow up, for the Go Global with McKinsey International Recruiting and Reception, the deadline is March 11th, but when is the event?
I think it's April.
In April.
I'm not sure about details, but register, yeah, I think it's in April, and they are going to fly you out to New York or something.
Okay, so if you're out of the country during that time and you want to participate, can you do everything? You're not sure?
I'm not sure about it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Yes.
For those, I think there were internships that you listed with the different companies. I'm assuming A, those are for people who have not actually got a job yet. But also, when do those deadlines usually start to come up? For
But
the
internship, you
summer?
mean the summer workshop?
Oh, was it workshops? Okay,
Yeah.
the workshops.
Summer,
Okay.
1 to 3 days workshop, right?
I think that's, it was like a train, maybe I missed it. There was like some sort of, you mentioned training. Yeah. Maybe there's a lot of slides and I don't know what I'm talking about.
So there's no internship, as far as I know, for the giant firms like this. But the summer workshop, they have the deadline in April. Most of them in April, and their events are in June. So, but we will be sending out reminders. If you follow us online, then we'll be sending out these reminders.
You said the consulting club has about 80% failure rate, and I was curious what happens to those individuals. Do the skills that they learn here, are they transferable to other careers, and have they been successful in other ways, non-consulting?
Sure. I can point out that we have some people who go into the MSL, Medical Science Liaison work also, right? Because consulting has some kind of similarity with respect to you are going to talk to a lot of people at a higher level, so that's another alternative. Some of them actually end up building their own company. Entrepreneurship, that's another level. And with respect to the skill set that you learn from here, I think a lot of people, the past officers can testify that in the worst case scenario that it fails, the skills that you learn in the case interview will broaden up your mind. It will make you think really differently about it will make you think really differently about how you're going to solve a problem outside of science, even in business. Yeah.
Yeah, even if you're not considering consulting, I would highly recommend do case practice because it really makes you think in a different way, and you learn a lot of skills just by doing the case. And it's fun. It's like solving a puzzle, so you might enjoy it.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, but so on one of the slides, I think you had like the number of like interviews or like acceptances and stuff. So like, I think there were like maybe 40 interviews. How many of those were unique?
26, I think.
Okay.
26.
So it wasn't like for example, like just one outstanding person just getting all the interviews. It was more spread out.
It was more spread out this year. Previous year, we have people who received like 2 or 3 offers, but actually as time goes on, as the branding of the consulting club is actually getting better, we actually get more spread out. Yeah.
Okay, so it's also a question related to the case interview practice. Yeah, so a lot of people have emphasized the value of it. So can you talk about more about the details, the format of the practice?
Sure. We're going to talk about this actually later on, but I can touch a little bit on this. So the format will start with a prompt. They're going to speak, the consultant will speak out, like, okay, this company have a problem with this. How are you going to approach this problem, right? After that, you're going to be allowed a couple of minutes you're going to ask time actually, to take a minute to structure your approach, draw a structure tree. And then from there, you're going to explain your structure to the client. And then there are actually 2 ways of case. One is called candidate-led, in which you are going to drive all the cases. You are going to speak. You are going to ask for the relevant information. Another one is called the interviewer-led, and this is done by McKinsey, in which they ask you a question and then you answer, right? Q&A, and so on. So with the candidate-led, you are going to ask all the necessary information leading up to the final solution. And at the end, you are going to have time they're going to give you time to summarize your finding in an executive way, starting with summary and then spotting evidence and so on. Yeah, that's like pretty much the general. Yeah, so I'll send it back.
So medical school is like 4 years long, and PhD, hopefully not much more than 6. So are you guys targeting or find that these sessions would be most useful towards the end of those careers or earlier on? Is there too early?
Yeah, for me, I think it's never too late, too early to start. Personally, I would have preferred to start early. Unfortunately, I learned about the consulting career track when I was a postdoc. So if I wanted, I would have, learn about consulting maybe in my first or second year in my PhD. So like we have our officer here is like second year PhD student who get early, and they just tell you that all the things that you learn, the case practice that you do, all of them do build up, and you're going to lose a little bit of it, but the general idea is you're going to retain the knowledge of solving it, and you can apply this in different kind of areas. We have one of the board members thinking about opening a restaurant, and they started laying out all these things, location, customers, competitors, blah, blah, and so on. So, yeah, that answers your questions. Yeah. Yes?
Is the data science change the way of consulting firms doing with business, or it influence with business?
Sorry, can you
The data science.
Data science?
Yeah, it would change the way consulting firm doing with business or changing this industry.
Data science, huh? I think it is going to change the way business is being done for sure. So a lot of companies nowadays put a lot of resources on data scientists, right? They, I know McKinsey, BCG, and Bain. I know they put a couple hundred $100 million into data science, getting customer feedback and so on. So data science is definitely one of the areas they're like investing in.
So actually some consulting companies have an analytics arm.
Yes.
McKinsey have a data science, you can apply for a data science position, and it's a different cycle than the consultant. And they're looking more for the data analysis, programming skills rather than the business skills. It might not be, like some consulting companies have acquired data science companies that are kind of like part of the company now, maybe with a different name. I know Accenture did something like that.
Yes.
So I think it was like one of your first few slides, you talked about leadership evidence on your resume and stuff. It's like that's what gets you in the door. And I've heard that before from people as well who've landed jobs. So my question is that a matter of just selling yourself as a leader, like in stuff that you've done, or do you need to be like president and founder of like 4 or 5 different organizations? What's the role there? Because grad school and med school are busy, right? And a lot of people don't have time to sit down on a lot of that. So.
Yeah. So it's definitely one of the aspects that they can sell, right? If you have leadership skill. However, just to point out, you don't have to have a lot of position associated with it, right? You can maybe have 1 or 2, something in which you can really show your passion. You don't want to have leadership skill in which you have, maybe you have 5, but then you only work on it for like 2 or 3 weeks or a couple of months, and then you move on to the other one. If you can show that you have a really impressive leadership skill, even 1, but in which you are really passionate and dedicated into, then I think they will be even better.
I just wanted to expand on his answer. So I went through the process last year, and I was concerned because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have anything since undergrad. But I was involved in the graduate student council here. So are you a PhD student?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe try to get involved in the graduate student council. There's other things that you can be involved in, but also things in your personal life. Like I heard this girl talked about how she led the choir at her church, or like if you're the chair of the running club. So it doesn't have to be like academic related. It could be anything else in which you exhibited leadership. So don't stress too much about the cliche, I am the founder of this and this, Yeah.
I'm
So
just asking because the girl I knew who got the job, she was founder and like all that of like 6 different clubs. So don't know. Amy.
Oh yeah, you should go to BCG. Yeah, I mean, that's cool if you're founder of 6 things, but it's not necessary. I had like 1 involvement in the grad student council and everything, like I was an RA in undergrad, and I still got an interview. Like, you know what I mean? So there's other ways in which you can sell yourself.
Questions? Yes.
I'm just curious what, like, for example, as a PhD student, what the school and consulting work-life balance is like. Do they put school as a priority, like make sure you finish your PhD? You have to
finish your PhD.
You have to.
Yeah.
Because I know one consultant who's actually working on her PhD in consulting. Which I know, which is really weird. I don't know how she does it. I haven't even asked her yet, but.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
I had a question in terms of timing. So I'm a 5th year and I'm trying to graduate by December. But if the whole kind of process with the dates, they don't give offers until April, or was it April? I guess I have to look at the skit. I have to look at the slides again. But essentially, what I was going to ask is: A, are they flexible with start times? And B, do you know of students, you know, through your experience in the club, who kind of had that issue where they applied for a job and maybe even lucky enough to get one, but they graduated kind of in an awkward time in the middle of the year, so they had this time period. And how do people overcome that? I guess.
That actually, to answer the question, they're actually really flexible with timeline. So I think I know one of our members of the club who actually graduated 2 years ago, and currently he received offer from all the big firm, and currently is still doing his PhD, trying to finish his dissertation. So the firm I know, they can actually easily push it back, or mostly push it back. Yeah. So they are open to pushing it back. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? All right, guys. Thank you for coming.